Hi, and welcome to Speakers on Edge. We're doing 15 minutes of fame where we have voices of vision sharing messages that matter. And my guest today, it's Natasha. Natasha, who are you?
I was burnt out, absolutely exhausted, and couldn't see 2 feet in front of me. I had started my first business thinking that that was going to create freedom, fulfillment, uh, being able to travel anywhere, do anything I want. But instead, I was tied to my business. I worked all day, every day, including the weekends. I was in the same room as my family, my children, and I wasn't present. I was always on the computer. I never felt like I was making any progress. And essentially, what ended up happening for me was my whole life had to fall apart in order for me to realize that nothing in my life was working with my business. So, what I mean by that is there were financial constraints. It took a toll on my personal relationships. I wasn't showing up as the mother that I wanted to be with my children. And I disappeared socially from friends, family, because again, my business was all consuming. And at the end of the day, my business really wasn't even out of the red. So I had a private practice and a mobile imaging company that did modified barium swallow studies. And as a trailblazer, I was like, I'm going to be the first one in my state to do this. And so there's a lot of red tape, a lot of things, but I did everything by myself, yet it took a really, really long time. Um, I had quit my job, went all in on this business. And with doing all of these things, I still had to work like on call jobs. And again, this impacted my relationships to the point where I ended up having to file for bankruptcy because my business just wasn't doing what I thought it was going to do, given this was about four years ago. So this was during the pandemic. So things were shut down, businesses didn't last, which was unfortunate. And so, but that was really the catalyst to get me to kind of shift my perspective and go, this isn't working, because I couldn't cover payroll. I was all over the place. So with that, I had to look inward. Even though I had set up some systems for this business that I no longer could run, I had to take a look around and say, is it my business or is it me? Because I didn't even recognize myself anymore. I realized that I had built my entire business on burnout, on hustle, on grind, and I had nothing to show for it. I didn't know that I could build a business that wasn't, I have to work hard, work myself nearly half to death, and sever all of my relationships and being a good mother with, you know, I could have it all. I just had to figure out how. So for me, this was a very difficult yet beautiful journey of rediscovering myself, because through this journey I reinvested in myself through starting. I wanted to still help people and I still wanted to have a business, and I didn't know what that was going to look like. um, and it was through this journey that I realized that I I discovered so much about myself by realizing that my this identity that I had, I didn't know who I was. So this was an identity of being a business owner, someone who works really hard, the person that puts everyone before themselves. And I didn't have anything to show for it. Really I didn't know who I was outside of being my title as a speech pathologist or a private practice owner. Like, as a mother, but like, who am I? What did I like to do? I couldn't even answer that because I spent no time by myself. I didn't even know what I liked anymore. I didn't have hobbies. People would ask me what I like to do, and I would be like, I don't know, sleep. And that was like, that's not a hobby. But so for me, it took losing my, my closest relationships and losing financially to go, okay, well, if it's not if it's not my business, you take the business aside, and I still wasn't unhappy. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life when I grew up. So this involved really creating a whole new identity for myself. What I wanted to be, how I wanted to show up in the world, and how I wanted to build my new business. And so this involved really a lot of journaling and becoming aware of.
I want to interrupt you at this point, because what you've been talking about is typical self-employed nightmare.
Mhm.
It is the typical absolute most people in the world can relate to. I've got everything to do, the hustle, the grind, the chaos, the not being present for the family and for our loved ones, losing the relationships,
Mhm.
getting exhausted, getting to that point of burnout, not having hobbies, not taking time out for who we are. And then the financial crunches that go on with that. Oh, I've got to pay this bill and I've got to pay that bill, and how can I make that money this week? And then I've got to pedal something out, and the stress and the sleepless nights. This is a very typical scenario. Was there a moment that you woke up and went, we're not playing this game anymore? Or was it a combination of, this has gone wrong, then this has gone wrong, and then this has gone wrong, and then this has gone wrong, and I've just got to change? Which was it for you?
It was the train wreck or the snowball effect of so many things going wrong or just falling apart in front of me, because I had tunnel vision, and I looked at myself as, not a quitter, right? So I was all in, doing whatever I could and grasping at straws to be able to keep the life that I had, even though it wasn't sustainable and it wasn't fulfilling for me. And it really took losing the relationship, losing the financial piece, having to file bankruptcy, and then not even showing up as the mother that I knew I could be, because I was so stressed and so just involved in everything else around me, instead of looking at myself and saying, what's in, what's going on, right? Like, I didn't have a moment, I didn't have a breath, because every waking moment was either working on my business or what's the next thing, and I kept moving the goalposts even though I wasn't getting anywhere, constantly.
This is again sounding so typical to most people. Was there something that you did for you that started turning things around? And when you started changing things around, did it feel like miracles were happening? Or, yeah, can you explain that sort of situation for us?
Yes, it definitely, I guess, could be categorized as even miracles. I really full on invested in myself in so many different ways that can be interpreted. So I invested in myself financially, not being with, once I really delved into what it is that what I wanted, what felt good to me, what felt aligned for me. It was investing. I invested in different coaches. So this was also for building a bit my business, but then also in just myself. And with doing those two pieces, that really opened the doors, and I invested further with time to myself. And that also was in many different aspects. I changed the way I do everything, from time for myself within a morning routine, systems I put in place to make sure that I'm putting myself first. And then I went as far as even a retreat that I took with a coach of mine as well. But in that retreat, I would say, was the kind of the miracle in the pause, which was actually getting out of my environment and really diving deep into rediscovering myself. And then I was able to come back, and I really continued on this journey of full identity creation, which is now I don't even recognize that person from, last year. So I have gone through this complete, I would say, miracles and transformations over this last year to where I am now. And knowing that I was stuck in this identity that I thought I had, and these thought loops that I thought I had. And I thought all these things were just the way it was, when now I can look around and know that, first of all, I'm not my thoughts. And a lot of the things that I would fixate on and think about were actually stories that I would tell myself that aren't even true, and that I can create a new story, a new identity, and show up as that mother that I know I can be and I am, and show up as that great friend, that great confidant, that great sister, daughter, that I'm everywhere all the time, showing up as the unapologetic, authentic version of myself, and knowing that anything is possible as long as you believe it.
And anything is possible as long as you believe it. And was there something that you could tell people today who are watching, that yes, anything is possible if you believe it, but what's one actual action that they should take to help them start the journey?
To start the journey,
Mm-hmm.
one thing is, and it might sound weird, but is to audit your thoughts, because you will be amazed at that inner critic, that voice that's inside, that seems to be automatic, because we don't think about our thoughts. That's not something we think about, just like we don't think about breathing, or when we're swallowing, when we're drinking water, we don't think about these things, and we don't think about our thoughts. So a lot of times that's the stories and the things on repeat. That would be the first step, is what is it that is just on repeat in your brain, and being able to take that, reframe it, and flip it to something else, especially if it's negative, because more oftentimes than not, it's a negative thought pattern, it's a negative loop, it's a story that you have to ask yourself too. If it's a story, do you actually believe that to be 100% true? Because it just might be a story on a loop that you don't even believe. So you can flip it to what you do believe, or what is true for you, and then that is what you use.
And those stories are so debilitating
Mm-hmm.
when we allow them to take over our thoughts. But we can't monitor every thought. I mean, we have thousands of thoughts every
Mm-hmm.
day, but it's more about being aware of the thoughts that keep us trapped.
Absolutely.
And what are
Awareness.
those thoughts? But even more so, it's the thoughts that are triggering an emotion within us. What thought are we having that makes us afraid?
Mm-hmm.
What thought are we having that makes us feel lacking? What thought are we having that makes us feel lesser than who we really are and keeping us stuck? And what thought is being reinforced by those around us?
Exactly.
My darling auntie, rest her soul, she used to describe me. He's the shy kid.
Mm.
Yeah, and I've made a career standing in front of audiences and been on stages all over the world and been dancing in front of thousands of people, shaking my butt in front of thousands. And then I've been on TV where we've had millions of people watch me every week. Yeah, no, I don't really stick with that label anymore, Auntie. I love you. Thank you for being in my life. But that's a label that doesn't work anymore.
Right, because it wasn't true for you.
No, it was true for me at that time in my life that she knew me as that child.
Mm-hmm.
Then, as I changed and as I grew, the label didn't fit anymore. You were a speech pathologist. That's not who you are today. It's a skill you have. It's an ability you have. It was part of your journey. But today, here you are helping people in your world and in your way. And how can people find you?
They can find me on my website is natashaagha.co, and all my socials are Natasha Agha Consulting. I
Can
might have
you
said that.
spell your surname, please, just
Oh,
so that
sure.
people understand, because it's a unique spelling?
It is. It's AGHA. So natashaagaconsulting.co and Natasha Agha Consulting for all my socials. And then I love that you brought up fear, because my podcast is the Fear Chronicles, which is false evidence appearing real. So I love that.
And today you have blessed us by being very real. Thank you for being on the show today. We'll also have you on our speakersonedge.com website. It is under the 15 Minutes of Fame guests page. There'll be your photo and a button linking to your website. So that's it for today's show. Folks, anything is possible. That's our message today, if you believe. And I believe we'll see you next time. Bye.